Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Comics Corner, where I am your host. I am Mr. Josh, and today we'll be talking about some things. Uh, I had a vote on the channel to see what bigger comic I would talk about today, and we'll be getting to that. I don't exactly know how the order that I want to do this in, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Hello, Charles. I figured before we get into like the book we'll be talking about, I'll be chatting a little bit about the more recent comics that have come out that I picked up recently. First off, I want to talk about a comic that I was very excited about once I heard about it, because it is the spiritual successor to a team that I was a big fan of. The new comic does not inherit the name, but it's very clearly like the successor to it. And that comic is Marvel Unleashed, in which we get a bunch of the pet characters teaming up once again. So if you are familiar with the Pet Avengers, this is, I think, definitely the spiritual successor to that. We still got Lockjaw, we still got Throg, the absolute mainstays. Red Wing is here. I do not remember the name of Hawkeye's dog. Sorry, and I don't care enough about Carol Danvers to remember what the cat's name is. Is that a frog with Mjolnir? Of course, it's Throg. Throg. Everyone knows Throg. He's like one of the best characters in the Marvel Universe. He's absolutely the best. maybe I'll talk about him more at some point. I do love him. Hello, Michael. But the premise of this comic is pretty simple. Lockjaw has been kidnapped by Craven the Hunter, who's doing shenanigans, and we got like a bunch of pets going like, we gotta save Lockjaw. Also, there's like other mysteries happening. It's really cute. There's only one issue out right now. This comic actually started just in the past week, so it should be, if you're interested, like if this cover does not interest you, one thing, what's wrong with you? But second, if this does interest you, it's pretty easy to pick up and read. It's just a cute comedy series so far with the pet characters, and I will literally take any excuse to have Throg in any comic. I pray that one day he will get the recognition he deserves. I legitimately don't know why we don't see him out of comics. It's one of the saddest things. But that's neither here nor there. Another comic I picked up recently. This one's actually a little bit older, and by older I mean like just by like a month or two. I think this came out in July, so I was a little late to picking it up. This is a What If comic, so if you're familiar with the What If line of Marvel Comics, they're typically one-shots that go like, oh, what if X? Like just, what if Elektra didn't die? What if the Beast kept mutating? Stuff like that. There's a Disney Plus series kind of based on the idea, I think. I don't know, I haven't watched that. But currently they're rolling out a line of What If comics called like What If Dark. I have no idea what that label means, if it means that like these are darker than normal. I don't know. If you go back to like the early What If comics, they were pretty out there and kind of the dork. The What If the Beast kept mutating is still one that haunts me to this day. It is what it is. So the one that I picked up, and I had to pick this up. And that is What If Venom. When I don't like these names, it should just be like, what if Ben Grimm was Venom? It feels like that should be what the name of the comic is, but whatever. Neither here nor there. Ben was on the cover. I picked it up. It's really that simple for me. You know how easy I am for this character. It is what it is. I kind of went into this expecting kind of nothing, because I typically don't like the What If comics when they're just like one shots. So it's hard to really like nail these concepts in 20 pages, you know. But they crammed a lot into this. Actually, I was actually pretty surprised I enjoyed this as much as I did, barring the fact that it's a Benji boy, you know. But we got this is post Peter getting the suit originally, right? So this is still like the typical origin for the symbiote coming to Earth post Secret Wars. If you're unfamiliar with the original story of like the original Venom story, the original symbiote thing, Peter actually was involved with the Fantastic Four, and Reed like rips the suit off of it. Like he not rips it off of him, Peter donates the suit to the Four so that the Four can analyze it and whatever. So the symbiote was actually in the Baxter building for a bit before returning to Peter, because it's alive. But in this version of the story, while the symbiote is at the Baxter building, Ben gets the symbiote because he's in a mediocre mood, let's say. It's that era of Ben where he's a little more down on his luck, so he's just like, whatever, right? The symbiote gives Ben a couple benefits that, like, it's like, oh, that's cool. And that's, Ben can control his cosmic radiation a lot better. So he can actually turn on and off the rock body, as it were. So he has just, like, the powers of Venom and his powers as the Thing. And he can just, like, turn them both on and off at will now. That's kind of lit. That's pretty good for himself, right? He's got lots of benefits here, and I kind of thought I did not see where this comic was going originally. I was like, oh, so is this gonna be like Ben gets corrupted using the symbiote and, I don't know, punches Reed in the face, a typical Tuesday night, you know how it is. And that is not what happens, because the Lizard shows up and is like, hey, Ben, you should use that symbiote to help my research, help freaks out like us, If the symbiote can give you control of your things, that should be shared with lots of people to fix things, right? Right, that makes sense. Yeah, Ben falls for this. So the majority of the comic is actually the Lizard steals the symbiote from Ben. And, like, most of the comic is actually about, like, Ben trying to get the symbiote away from the Lizard. Which is, a little bit of a toss-up, not really what you would expect going into the comic. And it is neat, because you get, like, this large fight between Ben and Venom the Lizard. Of course, ending with Ben getting the symbiote back, but because of this experience, like, it kind of turns Ben into more of what you would expect Venom to be, because Ben's a pretty strong-willed person. Because here, I guess I'll go back just a little bit. The image that I have to the right here, yes, the right, is actually the final panel. So it's like after everything that happens in the comic, he becomes more of a traditional Venom-like character, which was neat. I actually really liked this issue. Would recommend. It's a fun time. The things that the Lizard does in this comic, I'm like, bruh. Very, very neat. And it's a one-shot, so there's no there's really no barrier to entry. They even have one page detailing how the symbiote got to Earth. So if you're not familiar with the original symbiote storyline, it's a pretty easy pickup. And another comic that I just had to pick up despite the fact that I don't like this character, actually. Al Ewing started up a new comic series, so of course he's one of my favorite writers at Marvel, so I had to pick it up. And his new series is The Immortal Thor. I'm sorry, Thor fans. Just not into Thor. You know, when Throg exists, I'm like, what's the point of having regular Thor, right? It just is what it is. But digressing that thought, the Immortal Thor is, of course, having the immortal name and Al Ewing attached immediately, like, tilts some heads, right? If you're familiar with some things, because Al Ewing is also the guy that wrote Immortal Hulk. So it's like, okay, he's bringing the Immortal brand back, and he's writing for Thor now. And it's cool. I liked this issue, you know, because I just like the way that Al typically writes their work. But I'll be honest, I didn't understand half of what was happening. Characters were just spouting mythology shit, and things were happening, and I'm just kind of shrugging, going like, cool, realm of stories, elder gods, what up? Do thing, I guess. I don't know what's happening. It is what it is. But there are a couple cute things. If you're familiar with how Ewing kind of is, they're pretty pro LGBT, as it were, which he gets some flack for, but you know, that's neither here nor there, right? Like, I didn't put in like the best panels for this. For one thing, you can't really tell in these panels, but Loki is drawn very androgynous in this run. Like, they constantly have lipstick on. Their frame is drawn in a way to where it's like, oh, there's kind of hips, but there kind of isn't. And they actually use they them in this run, and like, that's pretty cool. I like that. That is kind of one of those things of like, when I started reading and they say they in reference to Loki, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It continues reading, and it's done so a matter of the fact that it's just like, yeah, this is just a thing, don't worry about it. But most of this, also the Bifrost is back. If you didn't know, in Marvel Comics a little while back, the Bifrost was destroyed. So like, one of the things that Loki does to kind of like go, hey bro, sorry, I kind of want to do a bit better. Here, I'll do this favor for you. And they just bring back the Bifrost, because I guess Loki can do that. No idea. Another thing that, like, there's this because Thor can go back to Midgard, right? Go back to Earth. They just like, he just kind of like hangs around with you. You got this like montage where like it talks about how Thor is a friend to all, and you have like this panel, which like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. If you are familiar with Ewing's work, you kind of know that they are just very pro. Like, they typically have trans characters in their comic runs, so it's like, yeah, this is just more common. It's not a shocking thing. What I found shocking about this panel is that poster in the background that says Cyclops was right. Like, I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know how to look at that. It's like, excuse me? That took me aback a little bit, you know. I'm just staring at like, Cyclops was right. Cyclops is never right. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, it's so weird. Anyway, what was he right about? Oh, it's just, Charles, if you're unfamiliar with how like up and down Cyclops is as a character, that's just, you know, it is what it is. I don't know if I could entirely like recommend Immortal Thor. I would say it's worth a try of just like, grab the first issue, see if you like it. Thor's gonna be fighting like elder god shit like this. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. But, you know, that's pretty cool, right? He's gonna be fighting big things. I don't know. I'll probably keep up with it just because it's Ewing and I read everything that they do, you know? I read a Guardians of the Galaxy run because they wrote it. I don't know. I'm not a Guardians fan. Would recommend that run, though. It's pretty good. But stepping out of the big two for a second, you know. Like, I typically read Marvel and DC because I do love my shared universe and, like, sincere characters about, like, heroism and stuff. But, you know, I saw this book when I was at the comic shop recently by Image, and I was just like, I'm buying it. I need this in my life. I just need this in my life right now. And that is the book Scrapper. I saw this cover with this dog on top of a flying car, and I just like, yep, that's mine. I'm grabbing this. And I did not know who this writer was. Cliff, I'm not even gonna pronounce that last name. I don't know. It was when I was looking up this comic later after reading it. No, it wasn't even that. It was when I was reading the author's, like, interview at the back of the comic, because they do that sometimes. It's really cute. I love when they put those in the comics. You can at least try? No. This is apparently, like, the lead game designer of Gears of War. Like, the first 3 installments. Apparently, he was just like, I made it big in video games. Let me try comics out. So this is his debut in the world of comics. He apparently also produced Hadestown, the Broadway musical. This man's been all over the place in the past decade. I was looking at that, like, I was looking at their career page, and I'm like, what are you doing? But yeah, I read this and had a great time, you know. 1, dog. But 2, it's this, like, really fun comic about, like, a dog in this, like, futuristic time period that's under, like, you know, everything's kind of run by AI. Like, the law is really hard to deal with. They're, like, pushing down on the poor and raising up the rich. And this dog is like, there's so much injustice in this world. I have to, like, do something about it. Also, the dogs can talk. But apparently humans don't know that the dogs can talk. I don't know if, like, all animals can talk, or if it's just, like, this one specifically who can communicate with humans and also other animals. No idea. There's only, like, 1 issue out. But I had a good time. Also, look at how cute the artwork is. I really only had, like, this page. Because I'm just, like, you know, show you the setting a bit. Show you how these dogs are drawn in the comic itself. Very cute. Very cute. There is, like, a passage that I wanted to show off that was in, like, the author's interview, which, like, I do like reading those. I thought about putting a passage from, like, the author's interview for Immortal Hulk, but I'll be honest, I didn't finish reading that interview because it was, like, 6 pages long. I did not want to sit there reading that. But the one that Cliff did for this was only, like, 2 pages long, so I grabbed, like, a couple sentences, and you know, here it is. It's something started to spark inside of my creative brain. Has there ever been a cool dog superhero? He then went on to, like, list a few that, like, and he kind of thought they were all lame, including Crypto, and that broke my heart a bit. But that's okay. Like, you know, he's entitled to his opinion. And then I wondered, what happened when those millions of kids who love Paw Patrol get a little older? Maybe there's room for something in that space that has Don Bluth vibes, or maybe a little Watership Down. And I'm like, yes, give me that. I am here for Superdog saving a futuristic city. It is Batman Beyond, but with a dog, which is just, we've improved this by so much. It's so much better now. It's so much better. I cannot recommend this enough. This was probably like my favorite thing I read recently. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So like one thing I want to do with these streams is like, I don't know if this is like a good idea or a bad idea. We're gonna do it in this one. And you'll have to tell me in the comments if you like this. The structure of like comics I've read recently, this segment that I will be doing, and the book that like we vote on. But what I'm gonna do here is I want to take like a vintage comic, because usually a lot of them are just one, like comics back before like the 90s were kind of standalone issues, and so it's like I'll just like pick one and be like, hey guys, look at this, right? And so the old comic that I have chosen for today is Batman number 414, which is like one of my favorite like standalone Batman issues. I've always been waiting for like anybody to choose to adapt this issue into like a TV show or like a short movie or something. I really like this one. I do really like that. So this comic is post-Crisis, or Crisis on Infinite Earths, if you're unfamiliar with that phrasing. So this is like very shortly after. I think it was around issue like 400 that Crisis happened. So this issue starts off with Gordon, of course, calling Batman. A body has been discovered, chopped up in a dumpster. Very pleasant thought. And they're just like, we don't know what's happening here. But of course, Batman is on the case. But of course, when he's on the case, he meets a girl by the name of Kate. I forget her last name. I'm sorry. You just have this woman who saw that a building was on fire and rushed into it to save a child. Because, of course, she did. So after Bruce rescues Kate and this child, they kind of like banter for a bit, and Bruce is like finds out that this is like a very wealthy girl that is just like kind of doing her own thing to help like clean up the city. She mainly like attends like fundraisers and events to try to like clean up Crime Alley, and she like goes out into like those parts of the street to like kind of like helps things, you know, sus a little bit. But eventually, of course, she is a wealthy woman. This means that Bruce ends up bumping into her at some of these like events, you know, and they kind of hit it off a little bit, right? But not in like a like here. I think I have the page. Yeah, I left in like this little bit of narration. Bruce talks about how like they it's nothing romantic, and he's really like, he starts to fall in love with her, but in like a friend way, and it's just like, oh, I've never really had like a friend in like this world, this like in the more high society parts of like Bruce's life. It's always like, oh, you know, playboy, billionaire, gotta do the thing, right? But instead it's just like she's trying to help clean up the city in her way. Bruce wants to do the same, and so like they're like, oh, we'll like collab with some shit, we'll like do some things, you know. It's actually very wholesome and very cute. I like this a lot. Of course, unfortunately, because we learn that, you know, we learn earlier in the comic that she likes to go out by herself in the streets of Gotham. She ends up being one of the victims of that killer. And Bruce says something along the lines of like in the narration that, oh, I can't remember the quote off the top of my head, but it's like, it's easier when they're strangers. And that, I don't know, that kind of like struck a chord with me a little bit of like, oh, that yeah, Bruce is the kind of guy that always like doesn't make like connections with people specifically so that this doesn't happen, right? And Bruce kind of like flies into a bit of a rage over this because it's like, oh my god, that's Kate. She was legitimately trying to like help this city. She was the local hero, as it were, not like doing everything within like a human power and that she had available to her. And it's like, oh, she's dead now. That sucks. And he hears like some eyewitnesses say that like, oh, the person that kidnapped Kate was using a blue van. And Bruce is like, I know a criminal that uses a blue van, and it's some like mob boss, right? Just some like whatever. And he immediately goes and beats up this person. Like this guy pulls out a knife on Bruce, and he's like, oh, that was probably used to cut her up. I'm gonna beat the shit out. Bruce was very violent in this issue, by the way. I don't include those pages, but he's very violent and brutal to these criminals. And then after Bruce like puts away all of these criminals, it's just like, I finally done it. I've avenged Kate. He gets a phone call from Commissioner Gordon that another girl was discovered on the opposite end of Gotham. The killer is still on the loose. Bruce was wrong. He got too personal about it and just didn't detective correctly, leading to the death of another girl. And that's where this issue ends. It is this like somber story that Bruce isn't always right and he makes mistakes, and that inevitably in this line of work will lead to people dying, and that's gonna just forever be a thing that Bruce has to deal with. I love this like individual comic. It's so good. I don't know if it's like easily collected anywhere. But is there a follow-up issue? No. These were standalone issues back then. The next issue was about the Manhunters and Green Lantern and shit. Like, there doesn't need to be a follow-up issue though. Like, that's the lesson of this comic. That's like this like moral thing of like, you will make mistakes, and like Bruce has to like be okay with that. It is what it is. Okay, so of course I put up a poll like last week or so of specifically what trade paperback I should cover on this show, you know? And the comic that won was Batman Volume 1, Failsafe, written by Chip Zdarsky. So, Zdarsky is the current writer of Batman, and this is just, like, Volume 1 of his run that collects the first, like, 6 or so issues. I think it's issue 125 to 130, I think is what this book collects. And the short answer on whether or not I think this book is worth picking up is yes. This is a very fun book. It is I think it's pretty newcomer friendly, because this is I would describe this comic as an action blockbuster. This is not a detective story. It's not a mystery thing. This is just straight action for like 6 issues and is dope as shit. I'm usually not like the most into big action things, but I'm also a big fan of the Bat family. So this was just a lot of fun. This was definitely a lot of fun. And just for clarification, of course, on these covers, the Robin currently is Tim Drake. Damian also goes by Robin, yes, but he has a different costume. He's not using like the red, green, yellow palette that like Robin is known for. He has like a gray and red outfit because he's, you know, an edgy teenager, you know. But Tim is, of course, back in the original Robin suit. I have feelings about that, but we're not going to discuss that here. this like general setup. Most of this comic is Bruce. You have Bruce Wayne, Tim Drake doing things. One thing that I should say going into this, if you aren't the most accustomed to the world of comic books, there's going to be a couple things that might be off. One is, of course, the thing that I think above everything else causes people to not like the DC and Marvel universes, and that is like not the complex continuity, because that's really easy to get over in my opinion. It is the suspension of disbelief, because there is an issue of this in which Bruce has to jump out of a blowing up Justice League watchtower and glide back down to Earth and prevent himself from burning up in the process. It's kind of hype, not gonna lie. But of course, if you're not okay, if you're one of those people that needs the laws of physics to work in your universe, maybe this isn't the book for you. Maybe not. But also, why don't you like having fun if that is the case, you know? Look at this shit. This shit's amazing. Another thing is like, this, although continuity doesn't really matter to this book, it does bring up one event prior, right? I'll go back to the cover real quick. This is like a pseudo continuation of an older story called Justice League Tower of Babel. Not sure if everyone is familiar with that. The short answer is that that's the story in which it's revealed that Batman has contingency plans to take out every member of the Justice League just in case anything, you know, in case shit happens, if you know what I mean. He just has that as kind of a buffer and for his own mental security, right? It is what it is. Oh, what was I going? What was the next slide? Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. One, I also do want to compliment the artwork in this comic. The artwork is amazing throughout the entire volume, I must say. There's just such momentum to everything. These are a couple panels from just the first issue. But there's just so much action and forward momentum, like I said, just throughout the entire book. Everything's happening all the time, you know. And that's something that the writing carries. You don't get a lot of exposition. You don't get a lot of, like, long dialogue questions. It is just, go, thing happen. Quick question, I'm sorry. Just wanted to know, was it true that Batman couldn't come up with a contingency plan for the Plastic Man? You know what? I don't remember. Didn't he just freeze him? Sorry, it's been like 15 years since I've read Tower of Babel. I'll be honest. Maybe I'll have to put that on the vote at some point. We can like go through that a bit, you know, together. But who knows? I don't quite remember. Because I don't remember what all of the contingencies were. Like, I legitimately just don't remember Wonder Woman's as well. Like, whoops. There it is. Is what it is. So the Failsafe arc, kind of the general setup is that, at least at the start, right? The Penguin is just going to mass slaughter the rich in Gotham because he's like, you've all had it good enough for too long. I'm just gonna mass kill all of you. So he like holds a gala and then like has it set to explode to kill off the entire like wealthy generation of like Gotham, you know. And Bruce has to stop him, and he does, right? It is what it is. But a little thing is that Penguin knew, of course, that Batman was going to stop him. So Penguin sets up the scenario to where Penguin himself will die but it will look like Batman did it. So that Batman's reputation in the media will be ruined. Maybe not forever, but like Penguin gets to die knowing that he's very much inconvenienced Bruce or Batman, right? You know, that kind of sucks. It is what it is. Also, during this entire sequence, I could not stop myself from putting this here because I like gushing about one of my favorite characters. And that is, of course, Tim Drake. During this whole kerfuffle, right? Tim Drake is shot in the throat. It is what it is. And Bruce has to, like, quickly rush Tim to the hospital so that he doesn't die. But while, like, Tim is, like, coughing up and choking up blood, he's like, Bruce, you can't take me to the hospital. They'll know that I'm Robin, and and you're my adopted father. That's such a very easy through line to discovering that you're Batman. Like, you can't take me to the hospital. So Bruce has to park and switch out Tim's clothes to just make it seem like Tim just got shot while attending the gala, because, you know, that makes sense. Bruce Wayne would go to this wealthy ball, whatever, and bring his son with him, you know? Is what it is. But it's just, you have this, like, really soul-crushing monologue from Bruce of he's just like, I can't believe that I can't legitimately do everything in my power to save these people, like to save my family. I do have to think about the mission first. I can't just rush Tim to the hospital. I have to do this first to protect us in a different way. And, you know, it's there's this, like, constant duality in this book about how the Bat family is a family, not soldiers. Like, you constantly have characters saying, like, oh yeah, Batman, you're soldiers, right? They'll always be there to defend you. Or just, like, you have a couple things later. Just like that phrasing comes up a lot, like soldiers versus family. It seems to be like a thing that's just constantly going through, right? But like I said before, Penguin has, you know, died, kind of killed himself, but did it in a way to where it looks like Batman is the one who did it. And this awakens something. So, of course, the Tower of Babel storyline was about Bruce's contingencies. But, you know, it leaves the question, does Bruce have a contingency for himself if he ever crosses a line of killing somebody? And the answer is yes. The robot Failsafe emerges to kill Batman. Like, they mentioned that, like, Failsafe is programmed to scan all news media outlets to judge whether or not Bruce has ever gone too far. So, of course, the news report of him killing Penguin, even though is false, awakens Failsafe. And boy, Failsafe is kind of terrifying in a way that I love. Because this robot just shows up and just goes to murder Bruce. He barely talks. He's just kind of like Operation Failsafe go. He constantly talks in these, like, 1 to 2 word answers, because, you know, he is, like, programmed to respond to certain commands. And he's just running. Like I mentioned earlier, that there's a lot of just forward momentum, you know, to the artwork in this, and the pages of Failsafe trying to take down Batman is very visceral sometimes. It's a lot of fun, but, like, this man's running. And I mean, he's got to take out Bruce and all this. Yeah. But one of the issues with Failsafe for Bruce, Bruce doesn't remember building Failsafe. The idea of Failsafe is familiar to Bruce, but he does not remember building Failsafe. And so Bruce doesn't have any contingencies to take down this robot. And this robot has a mesotech in it. If you don't know what that means, it's a super robot, essentially. So it's really hard for Bruce to take this robot down, right? Like, immediately the Bat family shows up. You know, you have Orphan, Spoiler, Signal, all these Bat family characters that I'm sure you all are familiar with. Yes, for real, for real. It's so sad that like 90% of the Bat family like just doesn't get adapted. At least I think that's sad. And of course, because this robot is designed to take out Bruce, he just takes out the Bat family real quick. The Justice League shows up. Because Failsafe is a contingency plan for Batman, he also has, like, contingencies for Justice League members, because Failsafe just be that way. So he also just takes out the Justice League, and he's just still running. He's just still running after Bruce. Bruce is, like, getting into cars to get away, into jets, into teleporters to teleport halfway across the globe. Failsafe's still running. Failsafe's still running after Bruce. Like, this man won't stop. One of them is named Spoiler. Yeah. You know, Stephanie. She became Batgirl for a bit, but, you know, she typically goes by Spoiler. You know? It is what it is. But this entire book is just running from this robot. It's just action scenes. It's so much fun. It's so much fun watching shit happen. Like, he just shows up and does things, not even talking, just go. Though, because I know that my audience, not comic book readers, I figured I should explain something from this comic just so that there's little confusion. Because there is a stinger at the end of, like, what, issue 2 or 3 of this 6-issue comic? That when I saw this reveal, I was like, I eye-rolled and went, you gotta be fucking kidding me, but also I'm here for it. And that is the reintroduction of, Zuranar? I think his name was Zuranar. I think that's how it's pronounced. Who is Batman. You have this character named Zuranar, and he's the one that actually built Failsafe. So if you don't know who Zuranar is, if you don't know who this man is, he is an alternate personality of Bruce Wayne. That's kind of crazy. The general idea is that, like, Zuranar is Silver Age Batman, but corrupted. You know, that's why, like, in Bruce's mindscape, Zuranar looks like a Silver Age character, right? Like the image on the right there. That's, like, in the mindscape, as it were. But because the whole Tower of Babel thing, Bruce, like, was like, oh, well, what do I do about, like, all of this? Zuranar took over and created Failsafe in case shit happens. So, of course, Bruce, figuring out that it was Zuranar, he willingly lets Zuranar take the wheel, as it were. And a lot of this, you have this section of the comic where it's now Zuranar battling Failsafe, and shit happens. I figured I should explain this, because it's one of the few things that this comic doesn't explain thoroughly. There is a lot of history with Zuranar, mainly because he was a Silver Age character that post-Crisis, they decided not to make him a character in his own right, and just made him an alternate personality of Bruce. if I remember right, back pre-Crisis, Zur-En-Arrh was an alien that was just his planet's version of Batman. But of course, post-Crisis and post-2000s, we gotta edge shit up. So now it's a crazy alternate personality of Bruce's, who comes out of the box every now and again. I legitimately don't think he's ever been adapted. There is a cutaway gag for Zur-En-Arrh and Batman Brave and the Bold, but it's just a cutaway gag. So, you know, if you read this, now you won't be confused when suddenly Bruce comes out of a cave, like comes back out to Tim and is like, I'm Batman! Also call me Zur-En-Arrh! Because of course none of the other Bat family knows who the fuck Zur-En-Arrh is, like... it's just whatever. So then Bruce is running around going, come on, old chum, we have a robot to take down. You know, because he talks like that. Like, it's just... this shit's stupid. This shit's real dumb. But of course, like, that is the general flow of this comic. I do not want to spoil how this comic ends, the general conclusion, the last 2 or so issues. I am leaving that to you all to figure out. If you so choose to pick up this comic. Again, this is Batman Volume 1 Failsafe by Chip Zdarsky. It has this full storyline, so you'll get just the whole thing. It was released earlier this year, so you should be able to pick it up pretty easily. The book's not out of print yet. That is something with trade paperbacks you have to watch out for, is like when they go out of print, they suddenly become very hard to track down, as is with comics. Of course, digital does exist. I do know that this comic is available digitally, of course. But yes, if you gotta collect myself real quick. If this interested you, I highly recommend the comic. I, of course, just gave you a rough outline, tried not to spoil too much, kind of give you some background things that to make it easier if you aren't as familiar with comics, you know. I don't know how much you all like this format for this stream. I'm gonna try to clean it up a little bit, you know. I don't know what order would be best, whether we talk about the book that we vote on for me to talk about first, whether we talk about my general what I've read the past month or so, whether or not you liked the segment where I talked about a vintage comic. I don't, you know, please tell me in the comments, you know. It's hard for me to know whether or not you all like this sort of thing. And if you do want me to continue doing this, you know, I always hate the whole call to actions, right? I don't do that typically, but liking this video, commenting does really help with the algorithm, of course, because it's hard for me to do streams and they get 10 views, right? I do kind of shoot for the 50 count. If I get below a certain thing, it's hard to justify it, right? Because if too many streams perform too poorly, YouTube stops putting my streams in your subscription boxes and recommendation boxes. So I would like to do these maybe bi-weekly, you know, every other week or so. Maybe once a month seems a bit too long, so I think every other week. I need to figure out a day to do these, you know. It's just that there's a consistency, but I don't know. You'll all have to tell me in the comments what you think, what you liked about this, what your hopes, what you want to see from these streams, because I would like to continue them, but of course they do have to do a little better, you know. But that will be it for this stream. Thank you all for coming out. I do really appreciate it. I like talking about this hobby of mine. You know, I like to share it with others, you know? It's a fun time. It's always like hard to like convey to people how much fun reading Marvel and DC comics are, because they are very fluid in their continuity. They are very like very sincere in their worldviews, you know? There aren't a lot of like complex morality tales. It really is this very, very sincere like world of heroism. And you don't really get that anymore. You know, media tries to be so subversive nowadays, I find, that having these non-complex characters doing fun and wacky things, I just like it just warms my heart. So like that's why I continue to read comics to this day, and why I like to like try to suggest and share around. But yeah, of course, I'll I'll digress with that. And again, thank you again, and I'll see you guys around.